Don Amici, ever since that movie, has become synonymous with Alexander Graham Bell. I think he almost beat that the comparison when he did the Battling Bickersons for so many years on the radio, but I think most people still thought of him always as Don Amici, Alexander Graham Bell, same thing. The story of Alexander Graham Bell had an unusual effect on the New York Times. They lost about $50,000 worth of advertising revenue as a result of the picture that we just saw, or more precisely as a result of film critic Frank Nugent's review. Now, Nugent thought that Tyrone Power had been cast in too many Fox pictures, so while he loved Alexander Graham Bell and Don Amici in it, he used this whole thing as an excuse for getting a dig in at Tyrone Power. He wrote, "If only because it had omitted Tyrone Power, the 20th Century Fox production of the story of Alexander Graham Bell at the Roxy must be considered one of that company's more sober and meritorious contributions to the historical drama." Well, both Fox and Roxy were so furious that Nugent would criticize an actor who wasn't even in the picture that despite the favorable review that he gave to Alexander Graham Bell, both the theater and the studio withdrew their advertising from the Times for almost a year. Now, those were the days when people did something about things. We'll be right back.
I could make this spot that we're standing on the crossroads of the earth.
He sought to build an oasis in the desert.
A canal stretching through from the Mediterranean.
And he risked everything.
I'm leaving for Egypt in an hour and 45 minutes. Will you marry me?
Oh, what?
I'm afraid you've allowed your enthusiasm to flood your sense of discretion.
A high price to pay for a ditch.
Tyrone Power and Loretta Young star in the sweeping epic Suez, Friday on American Movie Classics. She's homeless but happy. He's a millionaire but miserable. Together, they cook up a scheme to make his wife jealous.
This was the first time in years that my wife had paid any attention to me. I think you had something to do with it.
I imagine I did.
But what will the family think?
Just about got you figured. You're a gold digger.
I've known some pretty deceitful people in my time, but you're the worst.
See the film that secured Ginger Rogers as one of Hollywood's foremost comedians.
Hey, what's going on here?
Why don't you mind your own business?
Fifth Avenue Girl. It's an American movie classic. Coming soon.
One thing our audiences can't seem to get enough of is information about the stars. So we decided to take our cameras around the country so that you too could get a chance to meet some of the people who made Hollywood the place where dreams are born. Recently, American Movie Classics went to Carmel, California to visit with the elegant and ever beautiful Joan Fontaine. Now, here's an interesting story that she tells about Douglas Fairbanks, Jr., her co-star in Gunga Din.
Oh, Doug Fairbanks, Jr. Well, I was about 18, I guess, and he's not much older than I, but he seemed that way, quite a bon vivant to me. And one night after shooting, I was coming out of makeup, having taken it off and wearing my work slacks, and there was Doug Fairbanks coming out of his dressing room with a wonderful coat with an astrakhan collar and a red carnation and a Homburg, and he looked absolutely wonderful. And he said, "Good evening, Joan. I'm just waiting to pick up Marlene Dietrich to take her to a nightclub." Well, I never felt so small in my life, and I felt that every freckle showed.
You really couldn't see it there, but Joan Fontaine's home is exquisite. High on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, magnificently decorated with beautiful antiques, exactly the house that you would imagine an honest-to-goodness movie star would live in. Another American movie classic is the blonde musical star of the 1930s and 1940s, Miss Alice Faye, who tells a great story about an incident that happened with screen hero Tyrone Power during the filming of In Old Chicago.
Tyrone Power, he was really a lot of fun to work with, but sometimes he was really tough. And I had a problem biting my nails. No one was ever supposed to have known this story, but I'm going to tell it to you. And I was wearing false nails, and Mr. Power found out about it. And in one of the love scenes, he grabbed my finger and bent that false nail back. And I thought, I will get even with you someday, sir. Now, Tyrone wore two little caps here, because he had a little split in front here. And we were doing a love scene, and I brushed against his mouth, and they were knocked off. And I stepped on them. Now, you know, we were young. We were working hard. We had to do something for laughs. So I quit biting my nails, and Ty quit wearing the false tooth, and here we are. Didn't hurt at all.
Now, I bet you'll never watch another Tyrone Power movie without looking for that little space between his teeth. And what was it like kissing the ultimate Hollywood heartthrob?
Kissing Tyrone Power was like dying and going to heaven. It was.
Another lady who was a household name is Ann Sothern, who epitomized the determined, feisty, hard-working heroine so popular back in those days. Now, like many Hollywood stars, the name that appeared on the marquee was not the name that appeared on her birth certificate. So, why did Harriet Lake become Ann Sothern?
My name came to me through my father's best friends who drew my name out of a hat. And his best friend's name was Harry. And so they named me Harriet. Arlene Lake, that was my name. And when I came to Hollywood from the stage, I was still Harriet Lake on the stage. Mr. Harry Cohn, I was on a contract. I came there for my first picture, which was Let's Fall in Love. And he said, well, we can't have your name Lake because there are too many lakes. There's Alice Lake and Veronica Lake and Arthur Lake and a lot of lakes. So he said, we're going to have... So he made out a list, and he called me in, and on a list there were a lot of names there. And having been a good student of Shakespeare and that sort of thing, E.H. Southern's name was there. And I admired him because he was a very fine Shakespearean actor. And so I took Southern. And my mother's name was Annetta, so I took Anne. And that's how I became Ann Sothern. I never felt like a Harriet Lake. I've always felt like Ann Sothern.
Well, as Ann Sothern mentioned, there were many lakes in show business. Alice Lake was a silent star who often appeared opposite Fatty Arbuckle. Veronica Lake, of course, was that blonde siren noted for the peekaboo hairstyle. Remember the hair down one side? Was it the left or right? I don't remember. And Arthur Lake? Well, you must remember him. He made his mark in Hollywood as Dagwood Bumstead in the Blondie series of comedies based on the highly successful comic strip. They did it on radio, too. Arthur Lake and Penny Singleton. I'll be right back, but first, here's something special from our film archives. American Movie Classics presents Newsreel Theater, featuring rare newsreel footage of historic people and events.
You're watching American Movie Classics.
We're back, and tomorrow's Twin Bill is a look at society in the distant past and the foreseeable future. Our first film, the science fiction fantasy Fahrenheit 451. It's based on Ray Bradbury's famous novel set in the future. Oscar Werner and Julie Christie star in this Technicolor production, which was directed by Francois Truffaut. Then Spencer Tracy and Sir Cedric Hardwicke star in the biographical drama Stanley Livingston. Remember, Dr. Livingston, I presume. Nancy Kelly and Walter Brennan had an impressive cast of supporting players in that one. Now, today's movie question, Betty Davis starred as a pair of twins in two films, not one but two. A Stolen Life was one of them, and Dead Ringer the other. Now, 50-50 chance you're going to get this one. In which of the films did she sing Shuffle Off to Buffalo? Both films were a double dose of Betty Davis, plus for the actress and her fans as well. I'll have the answer for you tomorrow. For American Movie Classics, I'm Bob Dorian.
In July, there's a star-studded lineup of Hollywood's greats on American Movie Classics.
Join us for our Reaching for the Stars Film Festival and a salute to royalty and rogues of the silver screen. Get ready for a month of summertime sizzlers.
I'll be ready.
Good. First, American Movie Classics presents Reaching for the Stars, Hollywood's version of History in the Making and Those Who Made It. Stargazers won't want to miss Henry Fonda, Loretta Young.
I got a new idea rattling around in my head.
And Don Amici in his most memorable role, the story of Alexander Graham Bell.
What? I've got it.
Not wow, it's how. And Joel McCrea shows us how the West was won in his masterful portrayal of the legendary Buffalo Bill, co-starring Maureen O'Hara. Reaching for the Stars continues with Rosalind Russell as America's first woman flyer in Flight for Freedom, co-starring Fred McMurray. Marlon Brando and Oscar winner Anthony Quinn star in a powerful story of revolution and independence. Elia Kazan's Viva Zapata. Plus,
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
Spencer Tracy and Cedric Hardwick are Stanley and Livingston in the classic based on history's most legendary missing persons case. Also in July, we're saluting royalty and rogues. 5 lavish tales that are part romance, part adventure, and loads of fun.
Look.
A dashing Tyrone Power fights corruption by night. Linda Darnell co-stars in The Mark of Zorro. Linda Darnell lights up the screen once again, and The Fancy of a King in Forever Amber, co-starring Cornell Wilde. While Tyrone Power stars with the lovely Loretta Young in Suez. Next, Oscar winner Charles Laughton portrays the cantankerous and much-married monarch in The Private Life of Henry VIII. Our salute to royalty and rogues brings a comic swashbuckler your way.
Holy mackerel!
Doug McClure and Jill St. John star in King's Pirate.
Well, that's the end.
No, ma'am, not at all. In July, we've got more film treasures in store. First, one of America's favorite leading men, Jimmy Stewart, gives a heartwarming performance in the classic Civil War drama Shenandoah, while Victor Mature and Vincent Price are hot on the trail of murder and Piper Laurie in Dangerous Mission.
You have something else to say?
Celebrate Americana in July. Come salute the movers, the shakers, and the history makers. It's a spectacular month of entertainment on American Movie Classics.
If you missed any part of today's film, stay tuned. We're going to show them again. Hello again, and welcome to American Movie Classics. I'm Bob Dorian. Today is Tuesday, and our 2 dramatic films today were inspired by actual events that made newspaper headlines a few years back. Well, some years back. Our first feature, The Woman on Pier 13, made in 1949, served as a warning to Americans of the threat of communism. Robert Ryan, Lorraine Day, and John Agar star in this Howard Hughes production made during the McCarthy investigations. Then, Don Amici plays his most famous role of all. I don't even have to tell you what it is. It's the story of Alexander Graham Bell. Loretta Young is his wife, and Henry Fonda, his able assistant Tom Watson. Charles Coburn and Gene Lockhart, the co-stars. Now, before we go any further, we must do the answer to yesterday's movie question. At the recent summit meeting, President Reagan gave Mikhail Gorbachev a videotape of the 1956 film Friendly Persuasion. He called it an American classic, but this Gary Cooper film has another distinction. And what was that? Well, the screenwriter, Michael Wilson by name, was blacklisted by the film industry and received no credit on the movie because he refused to tell the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1951 whether he had been a member of the Communist Party. According to some sources, it's the only movie ever released in Hollywood with no screenplay credit. I'll have another question for you later, and I'll try to work on that word. I'll be back to tell you more about our first feature right after we see this.
The man, the challenge,
The greatest story in the history of journalism.
the mission.
Find Livingston.
He encountered the secrets and the dangers of deepest Africa.
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
And his story had only begun.
Not one word of proof. Dr. Livingston is out there.
Spencer Tracy in the historical adventure, Stanley and Livingston. Premiering Wednesday, July 27th on American Movie Classics.
Introducing Buffalo Bill.
They say he was the savviest scout, the most courageous cowboy, the fiercest engine fighter in the Wild West. But was it fact or fiction?
To give him all the credit for our victory at War Bonnet Gorge, well,
Buffalo Bill's a fraud.
Joel McCrea and Maureen O'Hara in the rip-roaring Western Buffalo Bill. It's an American movie classic, premiering Thursday, July 28th.
I give you my word. I will stop the troops.
I hope so. But if you don't, I will.
He was a rebel, an outlaw, a hero.
General Zapata!
Stack your arms and disband your army.
I've been fighting for so long, I don't understand peace.
Zapata's a tiger. You have to kill a tiger.
Marlon Brando is the legendary Mexican leader, with Anthony Quinn, written by John Steinbeck and directed by Elia Kazan. Viva Zapata, premiering Friday, July 29th on American Movie Classics.
Villains are usually easy to spot in a movie. Everybody can identify a cattle rustler by the black hat, or a spy by his trench coat and that foreign accent. But what does an American communist look like? That's the problem that confronted Sid Rogel when his boss, Howard Hughes, told him to make an anti-communist movie. The year, as I mentioned a little while ago, was 1949, and communism was on everybody's mind in Hollywood. The anti-communist sentiment in the country made one thing abundantly clear. There was no middle ground in this controversy. Filmmakers would have to prove whether they were for or whether they were against communism. Now, Howard Hughes, who owned RKO at the time, was one of the first to make his anti-communist views public. But as you are going to see in this movie, Hughes didn't have any clear idea of what a communist was supposed to look like. And as a result, the bad guys in this movie bear a striking resemblance to gangsters of the 30s or the Nazi villains of the 1940s. It was occasionally called, originally called I Married a Communist. However, the title was tested in New York and San Francisco, and the studio found out that nobody really wanted to go with a movie called I Married a Communist. So they changed the name to The Woman on Pier 13, which is a marvelous, mysterious quality about it, and I think it did the job. Well, are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Communist Party? That's the question that haunts Robert Ryan as he uncovers a diabolical communist plot. Here he is with Lorraine Day and John Agar in The Woman on Pier 13.